Welcome back to the Foundation. This is Swaytoven, and if you want to know how to make your melodies sound like they're in the same place, like glued together, basically, this video is for you. I'm going to explain it as easily as I think that people can understand this. Because when I first started trying to understand that, and even if I wasn't trying to work on it, when I first heard the term, it seemed kind of daunting, like challenging, is because they talked about compression and compressors already look difficult to work with, but they're not really that difficult to work with if you actually start out compressing at like the maximum settings and then dialing everything back. I think it's actually easy to understand that way instead of trying to slowly ease into compression, right? But we're not going to talk about that right now. Gluing the melodies together, right? Basically to make them sound like they're in the same space. I think it's like a pretty cool feature. Basically, like it's not even a feature; it's just like a good practice. Um, but if the melodies or the samples or already like good sounding, you might not even have to do that. Uh, but basically, yeah, it just makes it sound like they're in the same place, uh, or at least like the same. Just like they're not just too far off, I suppose. And this is what this melody sounds like. And it's like what I did was I took these two sounds and I routed them only to a bus. And before you even worry about the compressing part, maybe you could start with equalizing. And that's what usually people always tell you, use the volume and panning and stuff like that. But then that's where you go. See, if you pan two things left and right, you still want to have them sound cohesive, like, as if they're together. So that's when you like glue them together back. So it's just like, but you can always equalize it first, right? The high frequencies, the low frequencies, after you route them to the same track, because now this track is playing both of those sounds. All right. Um, and I say only to that track is because uh, just because that's how I would do it. If you routed it to this track and the master, I would believe that's basically parallel like routing, and you could do that if you wanted to add like heavy compression on this, but that's not what I did necessarily, because it can be subtle. But parallel compression would be, heavily compressing a signal and combining it with the original signal. And technically, if I were to do that by having these routed to the master and the insert one where I have the compressor, um, the dry signal would go straight to the master, and also the heavily compressed signal would go straight to the master. What I just explained was routing and just the signals and stuff like that. So that's kind of like, it doesn't have to be a puzzle. It can be easy, but everyone routes things differently. I'd imagine, I suppose. But as you can see, I don't even have the compressor on. All right, and this was like Black Friday, so there's all these deals and stuff like that. And maybe some people have like difficult looking compressors where they have all these equalization in it, and it has the compression, the dynamics and stuff like that. Like this is like the filter side, and I think people find it hard to um, navigate through this section just because it's like they can't visualize it, but you already know what the filter section looks like when you look at an equalizer. If I can click on the equalizer, you know? So it's just like when you look at HF, that's just like the high frequency. This is just how loud it is, right? This knob right here is basically how far up and down that is. And what this is, right, how left and right that is basically is what this knob is. All right. Left and right is such a terrible term, but it's an easy way to explain it, right? But it's a set high frequency, so it's just like the red might be up here. That's crazy how this just turned out red conveniently. These are not linked together. Might be up here, while the green might be like somewhere down here, while the blue is somewhere down here, right? The low medium frequency, the high medium frequency, okay? And those are just set within the bands of the compressor, but you can obviously move them left and right with the parameters, because this is just the equalization side. Oh my god, I'm so fucking. And there you go. All right, like this right here. What I'm about to do is mess with the low frequency of this melody because it's still linked to this compressor. We're gonna turn the compressor on actually. And the cool thing about this, I actually wanted to show something interesting, is because you guys probably already played with compression. You know what I'm saying? To glue it together, it's at like a moderate like release time. I think the attack doesn't have to be fast. It just depends on if you want to like save the beginning snaps, the transients basically. The ratio, like I said, I like to like do things high and then like dial it back a little bit so I can actually hear it. So like the ratio and the threshold are the things that you're going to actually hear with your ear. All right, you're gonna hear those things, and then you might hear like some melodic pumping or some rhythm maybe when you mess with the release and the attack. All right, but this doesn't have an attack knob. It just has fast attack or low attack. But I have like some gate on because I wanted to show something as well in this, is because what happens with this gate is like if something drops below a certain threshold of sound, if it gets low, it basically just cuts it off. Like with a compressor, it's like the opposite of the compressor basically, and we're gonna play it without this even really, the gate even working. And then I'm gonna like just increase the threshold because that's like really pushing it. Like I said, you want to increase it if you actually want to hear the difference. I'm gonna turn the gate on. All right, and then sometimes you might hear some dips. That's when the melody would have already like went low in the first place. All it does is basically gate it off, and it's getting it off a lot because of the threshold. I sounded like very like strong, but that's because that's what it was, because it was basically. But that was the expander. I don't really use that, so hopefully I'm just gonna like revert that back to normal because but honestly the compression part, you know, it's like glued together. It does sound louder, but it sounds louder so I can hear it in relation to everything else, you know. The thing about this, the equalization in the first place, is like when you mess with the frequencies and change them and stuff like that, you'll be able to hear this space clear up. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, I'm sorry, I'm like a little sick, but right now, like this 808, I usually don't have like a destructor on it or anything like that, so it's taking up like a lot of frequency, as you can see. Which kind of gets in the way of, you know, basically there being saturation on these melodies, and I'm guessing the compression. And it doesn't make, oh, that's right. You know what's crazy? I have this 808 linked to the the thing compressor, because it's all sound pitched. Actually, that's the reason why I forgot about that. I'm gonna get rid of that. See what happens. Sounds terrible. Maybe. It sounded better. It sounded better when it was linked to insert one. You know why it sounded better? Because it was glued together. And I might be wrong, but maybe I don't really mind the 808 being glued with the melody. But the thing is that that'll happen already in the master track, because when you add a multi-band compressor, so it's like, it's kind of like whatever. I got a cough. I'm just gonna stop talking for like a second.